Do you ever feel stuck in that back and forth while never getting the result you actually want? Hate that. But what if I told you there is a technique you've been taught as a beginner that's actually wrecking your chance to get good and clean blends? So today I'm gonna show you what this technique is, why you should avoid it, at least initially, and how it's wrecking your paint job. So what is this technique I hate so much? I started learning about this technique in those little black books that GW sometimes gave away with something, I don't know. And at the beginning, it sounds like a dream, It's not. The promise is to blend fast, achieve great results, while not spending hours and hours on the blend. It does sound like a dream, doesn't it? It's not, because this little fucker is single-handedly wrecking your chances to both improve and get smoother blends. But before I tell you that, let me explain what the technique actually is. 99.99999% of mini painters use acrylic paint to paint their miniatures, right? Acrylic paint, as you might know, has translucent properties and also is pretty fast drying compared to more traditional painting mediums like oil paints. But what if we could do that same thing with acrylics? It's a teeny tiny second long gap that the paint is not dry. So what could possibly go wrong with that, all right? So you apply your first color, wash your brush really quickly, pick up the other paint, and apply it to the surface while dragging the second in the first one, creating a smooth, silky transition, right? Looks good, hey? Looks easy, looks fast, but is it really though? Of course, when someone who paints professionally does it, it looks spotless, right? Having practiced 20 or more years, it sure can look like it's fast and easy because they're very much confident with their brush. Just take a look at Mark Masklins. In his videos, he sketches the highlights with very wet paint, using very natural and relaxed brushstrokes, because you kind of have to know where every single brushstroke go. I personally have been painting miniatures for 20 years. No one believes that, but it's true. And I myself have trouble following that. So what about someone who's just starting out and it's being recommended this technique? I'm guessing it might be confusing. So why would you recommend that when many other better and easier technique exist? Well, because it looks easy. Who doesn't like easy? I like easy. But that's just a straight up lie. And I'm gonna tell you why. Issue number one. In order to wet blend, you need to drag color B into color A or vice versa, which means you need to drag the paint around with your brush. If the paint's too runny, it will go everywhere and you won't be able to control it. People say that with this technique, you pretty much should use paint straight out of the pot, which again, it's not wrong per se, right? But still, there's a problem, because it's very unlikely you'll be satisfied with your blend at the first go. So you'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again. What happens then? You keep building thick layers of paints, and that creates 3D texture. We don't want that. Also, when you apply your first layer, you might have some inconsistency in the application, which will lead your paint to be thicker in some areas and thinner in others. If you drag the other paint while these already dried areas, it will be a mess. But even if you feel comfortable using paint straight out of pot or similar consistency, because maybe you downloaded my free consistency guide down below, if you haven't, that doesn't mean that you should wet blend, because there's still issue number two. Let's go back to Mark Masklin's work. Some painters use wet blending to sketch in tone, lights, and shadows, or other stuff like that. They're able to move the paint around as they want, and every single brushstroke is intentional. Every single brushstroke has meaning from the start, because they know what they're doing. like a lot. You need to be both quick and intentional with your brushstrokes because you have little time to think about what you're gonna do. You cannot take back brushstroke you already painted without running the risk of creating ugly textures on your model. And you cannot think too much about it because, well, you don't have time, really. But the question is, why risk it? Look, I am not telling you you should never ever try this technique. I think it could be interesting to just test your abilities to work with different consistency. Wet blending has a place, has a purpose. I just honestly think it's not the best way to learn blending. It's not the easiest way to learn blending. That's just my opinion, okay? It's my opinion. It's just one of those things that triggers me a little bit because it gets recommended so much to beginners or intermediate painters. There are so many topics, so many skills involved in this technique. Consistency, brushstroke direction, motor skills, and problem-solving skills. It's a little bit too much, isn't it? So Alice, okay, no wet blending, fine. But then what technique should I use to blend on my miniatures? Well, you will find what to do instead in this video here. It is gonna show you a very simple and easy way to blend on your miniatures and paint them in a clean and readable way. And see you there. Will you see past me there?